they do those?
Well, it's probably campaign based for
The pack, whatever?
it, you know.
But anyway, you're scared in office, not necessarily.
No, it's always people that are.
2 minutes till the public hearing.
How many minutes?
Two.
The pressure is building. I don't
Make sure you're done.
know that I can. You guys.
The race to,
can-
you know, you can settle it.
What you quiet for 20 minutes, right? Pretty good. Yeah.
How's your,
Well, I'll have to get up my reading. So.
you could doodle.
My agent was supposed to call me before 4. I don't think she's gonna make it. It's about open, so.
Sorry about that.
Cause I have to call her
I'm
after.
gonna grab some snacks, like everything.
Plus, it's my anniversary. I would much rather spend it with you guys than with Julie.
What?
We've spent so many, it's not like I haven't missed Christmas and birthdays and anniversaries and. Whatever. Many times.
Yeah. It's always as I was walking down, I was looking at the main shoot.
Okay, bye.
Oh, yeah. It's not so bad, right?
Well, sure they
Saw this.
way down.
Hey, Mayor.
Yeah, it was skiing yesterday.
Yeah.
No, there's actually really nice coverage for the ball and
Mm.
then you could do a minimal amount of, vegetation, trampling,
I apologize, but.
but that's gonna change in the next couple of days, I'm sure.
Kind of a responsible way against this.
Okay, ready, bro? Should we?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Welcome to the Open Town Council meeting of June 18th, 2025. I'm going to start the public hearing to accept comments regarding the proposed FY 2025 year-end budget amendments. So those of you from the public who would like to speak to that, please come forward and do so. Mhm. Anybody? No.
Nobody online from.
Okay, well, we're going to wait the allotted time. Yes, yeah, I know.
This is where that crazy memo that Craig generated AI today, right? Was addressing this issue. I think incredible how human like that read, I thought.
Yeah, I did not recognize it as machine authored.
It took
me almost
5 seconds.
That's how I write all my books.
Okay. 4 more minutes to get the comments on.
It's a perfect time to study the ingredients in both of these, the blueberry or the grab this time.
I tried to warn everyone.
Was that memo that Craig generated, were those actually real numbers and those are actually sort of the real changes?
John, I glanced at it and a lot of the numbers look correct. Not all of the numbers look correct, so there's still this hallucination. In order to make it more accurate, you sort of have to set up your inputs so that it's more easily digestible.
Did you say hallucination?
Yeah, they make stuff up.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
psilocybin.
It sounds
I-
really confident too.
I asked
It's
only
just-
because it was nearly all good news,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like every adjustment was a positive adjustment, really, in terms of the town's finances.
But I guess I wouldn't, I mean, AI is just summarizing the
The
text.
inputs.
What is AI doing any math?
Depends upon the model you use.
Sure.
Depends on the model you use. Some of them are math literate and most of them are not.
It's like me.
No, I was happy to see it. It was like a couple $100,000 in the right direction, net. So that's good news.
Well, again, I didn't send it out to stand by the numbers. I just wanted to demonstrate. Within a year and a half, I'm pretty sure all the numbers will be correct.
Interesting.
If this were generated a year and a half from now, they would be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pace, none of them could do math like 8 months ago.
Wow.
No, I mean, they could do little things, but not.
Not big things. And the story on Carolyn is,
She's on.
She's
she's on.
driving.
Oh.
She could be doing surgery.
Let's hope not.
Not while driving.
So I'll turn the camera on in just a sec. So hear me okay?
No.
Just a connection issue.
Sorry. I'm I'm getting onto a computer in 2 seconds here. So sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah, you're just sitting.
I'm very disappointed.
What are you disappointed in?
She's not getting on a computer.
Oh.
She literally meant 2 seconds.
It's definitely longer. Sorry.
Okay, it's 4:05. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this public hearing.
I move that we adjourn the 2025 year-end budget amendment.
Second.
Okay, any objection? In that case, that public hearing is adjourned. And
All in favor?
Yeah,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I
Aye.
said it.
Aye. All right, now I'd like to call to order the public hearing on the FY 26 budget from the capital projects, water and sewer funds. Members of the public are invited to come address us.
Mike Mullen was moving in that direction. It was a false alarm though.
Ambling in this direction, I think.
You'll be happy to know that there's no high fructose corn syrup in any of it.
Oh, that is what it is.
They're not added sugar, though. Those are delicious.
They are,
Is there actually condition on it? I like meat on.
Great for biting.
Yes, yeah, good carbs.
I've been spending a lot of time on Delta Airlines and they've got these new little blueberry ones. You know, you don't get a lot of choices on those flights, but they're not bad. I actually will palm a couple extras and take it back there for hiking. turns out my dad, I was pulling some stuff up from his old files from, DRW and, yeah, back then, and also, with, Ford Aerotronics before that. But he worked directly on 7 of our first 9 items to go to the moon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See if I can think of the first time I'm go to the moon.
You have 2 minutes. Anyway, for me, that's a really cool thing. Because he also worked on Pioneer 1, which was the first orbit.
See, we have 7 Rangers.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
3
right.
surveyors. Part of my vast inexhaustible store of useless information.
Well, also, just transiting the heliosphere. That just happened, I think, too. The edge of the heliosphere with Voyager.
It's been out there for quite a while, actually, a few years.
Past it?
Mayor, can I just make an observation that when you do the vote,
Yes,
when people are online, we have to hear them,
we have to what?
hear them.
Hear them.
So make sure we just hear everybody say yes.
You mean of the voters? Yeah, okay.
You say all in favor.
All right.
Just-
Any further comments from the public on this FY26 budget? 2026 budget? In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Say,
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye, yes.
Yes.
All right, hearing no objections,
Carolyn, I need to hear her say it.
Carolyn, did you say yes?
Yes, I said yes to this one and yes to the other one.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, in that case, that hearing is adjourned. I'd like to call to order the public hearing to set public comments regarding Alsa's Special Service District budget. Anyone from the public would like to address us?
wait to see what Mark's gonna do. He looks very stable in his chair.
This is not a big comment generator.
No.
Special service district budget.
That's a shocking
comment.
ruling.
I have a comment. Is there anything else we could do? Is there anything else we could do with this? I mean, it seems like it's a shell, and at some point it might be useful, but we just kind of keep it alive year to year. Is there anything else we could do with this fund?
Is this the appropriate time to introduce
Oh, are we not allowed to ask questions?
I don't know.
I'll withdraw the question.
I think the answer is yes, John. If there was not something we could do with it, we would just get rid of it, but. It's one of the mechanisms for funding and, for capital improvements, I think, that we don't avail ourselves of because we haven't necessarily determined a need.
I mean, the one that occurs to me is it's starting to become a little bit of an issue for us is the shuttle funding. And, it's now taking 6 or 7% of our budget to run the shuttle, and a lot of question about whether we should be doing that. And is this something could we fund the shuttle in this mechanism?
I don't know, but it's a great question. I mean, my assumption is that it's for infrastructure, or it would be for infrastructure, and obviously.
We have to look at how it was.
Yeah.
filed in
I think special assessment areas are, something that's defined in the code that cities can do, and I'm sure you can, the things you can pay for out of one are restricted.
I
So,
remember we made it for something because it was kind of tricky to at the time make, and then we just have never wanted to get rid of it because it's made and.
yeah.
It's easier to hold on to
Easier
it
to hold
than
on to it.
try and recreate it.
5 minutes. of
I think
public
somehow
hearing.
the shuttle expense would be somehow a little less painful if it was not in
yeah.
our general fund budget. You know what I mean?
Totally.
What reason is really process? Yes, I think so.
No citizens from your residence are present either.
Somebody will show up.
Well, one of those people.
Yeah, one of those, well, the usual
It's not the here.
person who, makes.
Perhaps they know how these things go.
Got a few seconds left.
What?
You just have to expand the thread. See it, see it, because.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So. You just forwarded it to me.
So like,
Yeah, okay, now I got it. Now I got it ready. Super. Thank you so much.
Okay, there are no further comments from the public. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, Carolyn held up her hand, yes.
Verbal.
Right,
I'm sorry to be a stinker, but
you have to hear her.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Yes.
there she is.
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay.
Code specifies that if they're remote, you need to hear them.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to call to order the public hearing, to accept public comments regarding ordinance 2025 -0-2, setting the compensation for elected and statutory officers. Who? Us.
Only us.
Appointed.
Statutory. Okay, and I'm sorry.
Are there some
If
staff?
I read the agenda
It's appointed in.
and statutory,
there's a lot of payouts.
well, we're still all us.
Yeah, I know, right.
At least I never, why didn't I notice you were left-handed before?
I eat and write with my left hand. I do everything else with my right.
I eat and write with my left hand and do everything else with my right hand as well. I used to write with both hands.
I
Until I was a teenager. I picked the less legible hand. That turns out to be an unfortunate decision later in life.
You pick the one that smears the eagle over your hand
Yes,
or pencil lead.
you should see me do book signings.
This is a strange brain wiring.
I'm in the same camp. I write with my left hand and do everything else right-handed.
What a concentration here.
Yeah.
Do you eat with
Yeah.
your right?
Statistical anomaly.
Do you eat with your left hand? Spoon and fork?
I play tennis left-handed. I play ping pong right-handed.
That explains a lot too, right there. I think it's pretty bizarre.
I'm lousy at both of them. That probably is really the answer.
Yeah, they used to give me left-handed scissors in school, and I used to just be like, no.
They can't work. I can't work them either.
No, exactly. No.
Yeah. I chopstick right-handed.
Or playing a guitar, I play with my right.
Yeah, me too. But I can't really play the guitar. I
Right.
hold one, I hold it right-handed. How's that?
I'm a minority here. I do everything with my right hand. It's,
Not a
We have our-
minority.
we have our-
Me too. Super dominant right-handed.
okay.
No
Now we got
flexibility.
that out of the way. We into 2 minutes of public comments.
I don't feel that we're holding back the tide.
Well, my daughter graduated from college on Sunday, John.
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Such a lovely multi-day ceremony.
Didn't they have kind of a weird commencement thing where it turned into like a rave or something? Where the person sort of
Uh,
led everybody jumping around. I don't remember
uh,
jumping around at
well,
commencement.
Sandra O was the commencement speaker. And so it was actually quite lovely. The connection there with Shonda Rhimes was an alumni, and the guy who wrote Games of Thrones was an alumni, and so they had this whole like thing going on with some people in the entertainment industry, and so at the end of her speech, her serious part, she said, "Okay, let's dance it out." And they played music and all the graduates danced, and it was pretty lovely. It was like a really like nice way to celebrate, and you should dance through life, right? I mean, it's a good way to go. So
When I
I
graduated.
know. Maybe I'm too conservative, but it seemed a little out of control.
When
For
I
a stuffy old college. I don't know.
I
I
remember, I remember the commencement speaker saying, "I've never met anyone who did not remember when they graduated. And I've never met anyone who can remember what the commencement speaker said." And that's all I can remember.
Yeah.
Well, Kurt Vonnegut's 1997 commencement speech is an easy one to remember.
Is it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay. All right, 15:420, you hear me, no further comments on the ordinance 2025-02. I will entertain a message to adjourn this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good, all right, in that case. I will call to order the main part of the Alpha Town Council meeting of June 18th, 2025. And we'll start with any citizen input. Mark?
Last month, there was discussion noted by in the draft minutes regarding the connection of the homes and properties in West Grizzly to the sewer. And Councilman Ansel questioned whether extending the sewer to West Grizzly would set a precedent for the residents in Albion Basement to demand similar service. And it's noted that Mr. Call and Mayor Burke responded that the West Grizzly area was within the town boundary and covered by the 76 agreement. And it appears that they said they're uniquely eligible because they're within the bounds of the 76 agreement. Well, as well, the people in Secret Lake, those property owners are as well within the 1976 agreement. And so it would seem, are they in addition uniquely eligible for municipal services? That's a question I have. So I would just once again urge the town council members, the staff, to go over the germane water contracts on which the Utah Division Water Rights are based, in addition to the filings there, and determine the status of those and have a public discussion on what can go where. I would note, for those that do not know, is that this would appear to be a dramatic change in policy for the town. Because in the 90s, my father specifically offered to fund the sewer extension into the basin and was roundly denied. I'm aware other people have as well. Miss Knowlton stood up in a public meeting before this body and said her husband as well offered to fund that. So the question is were the prior policies poorly chosen to deny self-funding to extend public sewer? Or is this a change now that is all of a sudden makes sense for whatever reason? So I think that's something you should consider. The other thing is that when Alts went in, they compelled the lift company to put in, they called it a sewer extension of the sewer, basically a private sewer line. That was not a good idea. Number one, because at the time, the question was the then Alpenglow in or out of the 76 boundary? And the fact of the matter is that they did not know whether the current new building, the original Alts, was in or out of the 76 because it would have required a survey to determine that. Now, the town records do disclose that they have a surveyor that proffered in a letter that he seemed to think it was in, but it was not mathematically possible to compute that at the time without field survey work, which no one was attracted to because of the cost. So I would urge you to review those situations. And, you know, one option would be to basically condemn the ski lift sewer extension and take public ownership and compel the people in the basin to hook up to it.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Ms. First.
Mayor and council. I want to applaud the council and staff for the diligent work that's taken place in the last several months. Incredibly short deadline to do things that have to be done. And I think knowing about some of those projects that were involved, again, I commend you for acting as quickly as you have. And I was thinking about OLS and the deadline of June 30th and so on and so forth. So that in mind, I also recognize that we're in a time where the budgets are due for the end of the fiscal year and the new budgets need to be done. And at the same time, our US Congress is taking action that they want to have done by July 4th. And specifically what I'm talking about is the reconciliation bill and the idea, the notion that was put in by Senator Mike Lee to basically sell off public lands, and then it's Forest Service and BLM lands, and that includes in Utah specifically 6 million acres of Forest Service land and additional lands of BLM. And I have drafted a potential resolution. I know you cannot take action on it today, but in looking at the map of what they say is part of these lands that could be sold, it includes a substantial portion of Albion Basin. So because we don't know what the status of that bill will be coming forward, and it is a certain time period of July 4th that the executive branch wants them to adopt the reconciliation bill, I think it's important for the town council to come on record for the town that this would be a bad thing for our town, both economically and for the resources and ecosystem that we have. So I can pass to the clerk the draft bill that or resolution that I prepared, and I can send a soft copy of that as well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments by anonymous people? Or others? All right, that being the case, we will turn to Mike.
Good
afternoon.
Not a false start.
Not a false start.
No, he's actually approaching the podium.
Oh.
So we've got a little bit of a busy summer.
Oh, really?
Today, if you haven't noticed.
We're trying to keep everyone informed of what's going on, so on the alta.com, you can go onto there and every week we're updating the summer update section that talks about the projects and what we anticipate will be happening in the next week. People can also sign up for a little email update and get it that way, and I think the town's already on board. Just a few updates on the projects and some dates and things that we do know. So the Crossstroke project has the town's water line in, as well as the big pipe that's going in out there. We're fusing pipe still. We anticipate that we might be done with the fusing end of that project about by the week of July 7th and start digging. July 7th, starting on the west end, heading to the east. It's kind of what we're thinking that's going to be the approximate timing. Albion and Day Lodge excavation's 95%. With Chris's help, and I think we've got the sewer reroute kind of approved and going to move forward. Hoping to start footings and pouring footings on that building next week. Equipment storage building, they're working on the gaming wall and the grading above that building site. And what will happen is probably starting next week, they'll start to, in front of the gaming wall that's been built, they'll start to dig down, start to shore it. So they've got to go a step at a time, shoring that wall. So it's big soil nails going into the wall and 130 of them to hold in place. Once that's all done, then they'll start that building. In regards to the summer road, grading of the summer road next week, back chloride scheduled for the 26th. Target open date for the summer road is the 1st. Campground target date is July 11th, unless we get ready a little earlier. We have notified all of the campers that have had reservations. It's been reserved out, for a while. But we've contacted everyone who has a reservation, let them know that it's kind of a construction zone this year. Especially if you're at campsite number 2, there's no trees left. Campsite number 2, because right in the middle of the lift line. And people are offering, we're offering people a full refund if they want to change and go somewhere else. But we're trying to really educate people so people don't get surprised when they get here and they have an expectation of the way things could be a little bit. The booth will be open this year from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Closing date for the campground, we're looking at September 1st. July 7th, the week of July 7th through August 8th, we expect to be some installation based on the Wildcat lot. So the helicopter activity will be happening during that period of time, from the July 7th to August 8th. Supreme lift, the old lift has been removed except for the top and bottom terminals. The lift line has been cut. Tower locations were just approved today. They've started to dig footings for some of the tower locations. We're trying to do the work in the campground first and try to get those footings in before we open the campground for the public. They're taking a rather unique approach to this top and bottom terminals. They intend to bring in large cranes. They want to pick up the whole terminal, set it aside. And they want to dig out the footing and they want to pick up the footing, set it aside. Regrade their area, set the footing back, set the terminal back on the new angle.
Wow.
So trying to do that both the top and bottom. So on June 25th, we expect a large dozer that they'll be bringing to help them move some of those footings down to show up and be headed up the road, as well as the first large crane. And it will have probably the crane itself will need to go up, and then there'll be a series of round trips of trucks hauling up the counterweights for the crane on the 25th. Which is prior opening the road, so that shouldn't be an issue, but it's just going to be a lot of heavy equipment going up there. They may have to pull it to the top of Supreme. You may have to chain up a bunch of vehicles and pull it if you can't handle the grade, but that will be going on. And then they intend to they'll be up there working on the top terminal until about July 1st. July 1st, they'll move down to the angle, the bend in the campground and disassemble that. And then they hope, if everything goes smoothly, by July 3rd, that crane is on its way out of the canyon. That's why they said the small crane, the smaller crane. Yes, cranes would be out. That's ideal if everything goes well. Around July 9th, larger crane will come up the canyon and go to the bottom terminal. And then where they'll be doing the same type of work down there. We're trying to do the work up top and get that down, get them out of there, as well as, you know, the campground stuff, so that we have you can minimize disturbance in the campground traffic and things going through there. We will expect there'll be a spider who will come in at some point in time to do the steeper slopes up on the there'll be a number of fly days that we anticipate that we'll get the word out when they come. They'll probably have to fly some forms, they'll probably have to fly concrete. I'm thinking that we work 5 days maybe for that project. It'd be less than we see on decent tower project there. This project out here in front of the Tom Moore Mine is a project that's done in conjunction with UDOT. It's really a UDOT permit to replace the culvert, and we're putting in a couple of water supply lines underneath the culvert, so we volunteered to do the work if they go to put the lines in the trench, so we're doing that part. They're also going to be cutting and doing some milling town of Alta and some new asphalt. I believe that's scheduled for the 27th, the paving. And then Flagstaff South paving is scheduled for the 30th this month, coming up. That's there. Trail right now, the area between Alps and the Bend parking lot, that trail will remain closed for this summer. That's kind of in the middle of the construction site, so if you're coming up the trail, you gotta go up the Alps Road or the other trail to kind of get around that site. It's closed from both ends and keep people safe and out of there. The Barb's Trail is now open. You know, it is a little bit of an obstacle course for people that used to come and do a loop. They can find themselves trapped on the other side of the big pipe if they're not careful. Choose other places where to go, but we're trying to give people signage and notice of what's going on. It's there, and there will be a number of times when things are being flown or equipment's being moved where trail may be closed for a short period of time and then reopen, and roads and so forth this summer as we're going through there. From a sales standpoint, we do have a few run series going on, races going on now that you may already know these. The Wasatch Run Series is July 9th and August 5th, 2 time nights. Wildfall Festival is July 20th, when it's scheduled for, and the Cirque Series run is August 23rd. The sales, we've got through our first tier of sales, season pass sales for this coming season, which is about 45% of the volume of season pass sales. And we are about the same level as last year in terms of volume. There's been some shifting again, but then the type of product, but quantity wise, the number of passes sold are about the same number. We're seeing the same thing. Mountain Collective and Icon both started off kind of slow with the uncertainty, but as the markets have come back and uncertainty seems to have, people seem to have a little bit more confidence. They've been buying product. Icon's flat, Mountain Collective's actually up a little bit in sales, so we're, as of today, everybody's comfortable enough to buy tickets and passes, so we'll see how the rest of the summer goes as we go into the latter half this year. Ski Utah reported that this last year they had 6.7 million skiers come to 6.5 million come to Utah, 6.7 the year before, so a slight decline. Whereas nationally, the ski visit number went to 61.5 million versus 60.4. So there was a little increase that was there. Skiing there. Generally, there's still a fairly pervasive thought in the industry that there's more demand than available ski opportunities right now. In fact, where people want to ski them and we can accommodate it's there. The our season dates for next year, target opening date's going to be November 21st. And our targeted closing date is now April 26th. That'll be a week later than this past year. You know, it's the calendar kind of moves. You start at 26th, and all of a sudden 6 years later, you're back to the 21st. So we're kind of adjusting back out to more of a historical closing date time frame there. I don't get, you know, the question for the town is, did you get a copy from Representative Benyon of the traction law?
Yes.
The rule? And have you got a chance to review and make comment?
I have not made comment. I think I actually, did you get your own? I thought I forwarded.
I have.
Yeah, okay. Or maybe it was to Mike.
From our perspective, we were a little disappointed that they didn't, you know, when we discussed, we had the meeting with them last fall before all this started, we were hoping for a traction law that could be implemented for the whole season. Seems to be that the way it's being put together, it's just going to be based on forecasts. That will implement, so. And all the inconsistency and the challenges of doing that are, will come along with that, will still be inherent, it's there, as far as we can tell. Any questions you might have for Altus Felix?
You're gonna get it all done?
Well, right.
Yeah.
Right, well, we know that the Albion Daylight expansion is a two-year project, we know that.
I appreciate the extra effort of trying to keep the public informed of what's going on. I think that is really nice, Mike, that you're doing that. I think it's stressful for everybody and stressful for you to take that extra time and effort. And I'm glad to hear that you're trying to work with people who had planned their campground experience up there. And it's certainly a different experience than they were anticipating. And it's challenging, but I thank you for keeping folks informed.
You're welcome. We just figured we needed to do, it's the right thing to do because there's so much going on in that data. It's pretty fluid.
I had a question about when you're taking this huge crane up the Summer Road, are you gonna try to close off oncoming traffic?
When we're going up, Summer Road still should be closed with, the big crane.
Yeah, big crane.
We are going to try to learn from the smaller crane.
Okay.
What that really means. And then we've suggested to them today that if the big crane could be here early, we would maybe keep the road closed one morning to get the crane up. And then open it. It'd be much better than trying to take it up in the middle of the day after we have traffic on the road. So it's fluid.
Yeah, got it.
Do you find you get a lot of internet traffic to alta.com as you start updating these things? Is it becoming a conduit for information that you think is?
So I'm answering the question.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that.
For sure, right? We know that it's starting to be picked up by, we're starting to see some articles and things in the news that are coming from the things that we're doing, so it's.
That are posted there.
That have been posted there, so we think there are people picking it up.
Yeah, I think it just adds to everything. I think it helps with your communication.
Yeah, and for all you old schoolers, it's also been on the Facebook quite a bit.
We are posting on social too.
Do you wanna say something, Jim?
I did. I appreciate you mentioning the mag chloride application on the 26th, and I think the skier in the town of Bennett communication. Because are you able to like slow down all the stuff, all the bigger vehicles that are going up on that day or the day after, or?
We're not allowing anyone on that day.
Good,
Okay,
good,
The intent is to keep the road closed on the day the MAC chloride goes on,
good.
and you know, we've made that clear with all of the contractors and everyone, say,
Great.
needs to go. You stay off the road that day.
appreciate it, especially
Yeah.
during a really busy time for you.
Yeah, we're not, the crane, like the crane operator, the crane will have no activity on the road on the 4th July. They've agreed to not having anything going on that, and but yeah, that's right, we're trying to, and the cranes, like we said, we need to try to get up on the 25th, so we don't have everything.
Yeah.
Anything on the 26th, if we can. Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is an update on OLS. Is it that you, Chris, or is it you, Jen? Or either one of you?
Want me to go first?
Please.
Okay. So we are on track for the closing on June 30th for OLS, which is really exciting news. We did do the inspection. There were a couple things in the inspection report that we were not anticipating. The two main things being the radon
Yeah.
measures.
I'll speak to that a little
And
more.
then also that maybe the roof needs to be replaced sooner than later. So we don't have a signed agreement yet, but we did actually go back to the Catholic Church and discuss with them the option for them cutting their purchase price a little bit to give us the cash flow to be able to mitigate those things. So and we believe we can do it within what they cut. They knocked 20,000 off. So we think that should be able to come close to covering both of those projects. So that was super nice of them. And Cameron's working on a addendum for that for them, but they've agreed to it essentially. So and then we are still working on do we meet June 4th? Was that the special meeting that we met with the council to talk about guidelines for the lease agreements and whatnot? So we are still working through that and drafts of that, but that's, we believe we'll be able to be on time with that and get a lease to Ace here soon. And then the other big piece that we're kind of working on is the special use permit with the Forest Service. Chris and I met with them yesterday. So there's basically two things that we have to do. One being, it's a revocation form for the diocese to basically hand over the special use permit to the town, or revoke their special use permit. And then there's a supplemental application that we fill out. So they're aware of, what we're gonna be requesting in our application, and it should be pretty slick. They kind of gave us permission that even while it's in process, just kind of to continue using the space as is and not worry, if
If
we don't quite have it on like July 1st or something, we can continue to, we can use it, Ace can use it, there shouldn't be any disruptions. And hopefully it'll take a week, I think because of the July 4th holiday, I'm expecting it to take a little longer to process, but hopefully we have that back the week after. That's the big stuff.
I think generally, what I'll add to the discussion about the Forest Service and the special use permit process is that we expect that's gonna go quickly by Forest Service standards and just quickly in general. And that if we do not have a permit in hand, what they told us yesterday is that they will not, cause us, they will not try to get us to stop using the building. There's no problem with us entering into an agreement with Ace or allowing, but there's no problem with us, signing a lease with Ace, absent a special use permit. There's no problem with currently scheduled events taking place, and there's no problem with continuing to schedule out the building. So that was one of our concerns about, the permit process and closing, and, the transaction is just so distinct from what it's like to buy real property.
Yes.
So anyways, that was a great conversation with the Forest yesterday, and it's not gonna get in the way.
Seamless, invisible transition.
Like the federal government.
Federal government, yes. Yeah. Okay, questions regarding departmental reports? From anybody? Cause I have one. Which I'll address to Mike. There has been in the news recently, attacks or threats on elected officials, of which we are some of, and their staff. And I asked Mike to, as our chief law enforcement person, to address any precautions or thoughts that we might have concerning that.
Well, we'll start by saying we're all lucky that it's Alta, maybe not another jurisdiction. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. There's a lot of disagreement, conflict, in our country and in the world right now. We're seeing a lot of national media to protests, on the immigration issues, the Israel question. Here locally, we've got our own issues, whether it's the gondola or the town acquiring the church. So I would say this, I've observed that. Just the word protest means that there's a conflict in the first place. And, the way humans tend to express, their dissatisfaction with another human's point of view or action, it's kind of a graduating scale for us. We look at, maybe what I would call the lowest rung of the ladder, written communications, which, we see here in our council meetings, somebody's for or against, an action by the town, they'll submit a written comment. That's typically, the most benign form of disagreement, although, it's in the extreme, threats are sometimes conveyed in writing. And then we move on to, your First Amendment expressions, our public forums. We saw a gathering here, the church acquisition. And again, these are First Amendment protected activities, and at that level, most tend to be peaceful, although they might be laden with disagreement. Up until you get to the threat level. Where somebody's saying, if you do this, we will do that. Or, just a blanket threat. From there, we get up to organized events and protests. Which I think we've seen a lot of coverage with the immigration issue. It's not uncommon for people with opposing views to show up at an event, in force. I think we saw that recently here in Salt Lake, where there was a organized march. Somebody that, and we really don't know, the motivations of everybody involved in that. I will say that I have every faith in Salt Lake City's new police chief, and I think that we're all going to learn a lot more about that in the coming days. And above that, you have planned attacks without warning. We are really fortunate in our law enforcement community to have an intelligence network that we can draw from. I can tell you as lately as 20 minutes ago, we've been getting some communications that because of the recent events in Salt Lake, a lot of the organized groups are scaling back demonstrations and pulling back protest applications and march applications, out of concerns for their safety. We get real-time information about known threats, and I will tell you that for our community, we assess that we're all the way down to that lower rung of things. I would tell you as elected officials, sometimes you get invited to go have your point of view known. I would say whether it's a council and mayor's meeting, a gathering, or a go down Main Street walk to show your solidarity with the group. It's important to have a personal security plan, especially when there's a potential for conflict, or a strong counter voice being present. So people are unpredictable. Until we get crystal balls, we never know what's around the corner. And so staff and elected official safety starts with your own personal safety plan. We're glad to meet with all of you offline or in an organized fashion, and we probably have council showing heavily to talk about some of those issues. But right now, we don't think locally there's any threat. But I would just say keep your head on a swivel. As you interact with other government agencies where conflict is present. Take any questions?
our council of mayors meeting tomorrow. It's very timely.
Yeah, I would guess this will be on their agenda as well.
Good.
And I'm sure that security is well attended to.
Good.
There's some good books on this topic. I won't recommend any authors, Paul.
Guess what?
I've seen some of those books.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and you know, if you have concerns, you've all got my number, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions regarding departmental reports? In that case, we'll move on.
Yeah, I had a quick question about the Chris's report. In the second paragraph, facilities master plan, FFKR, the sentence on mine is cut off. It says,
Yeah.
so town can consider as it moves toward updating.
Yeah, what is that supposed to read?
Roger highlighted that for me yesterday. The smart thing to do would have been to write it out. I mean, the message on the FFKR work is just that it's almost done, and I expect to have more or less a final draft of the whole product, including the historic structure report on Tom Moore at the end of June to be presented in July. We also have let's see, funding mechanisms. I sort of did some drafting with Dines Bank Public Finance on recommendations for us to consider how to fund projects, and got some preliminary estimates for you know, how to borrow $5 or $10 million, $1 or $5 or $10 million, and what the total property tax assessment would be if it was a general obligation bond, and all this other great info. So that is gonna be
useful,
great and heavy tome of stuff for us to consider, and I do hope we're gonna have that. I assume that we're gonna be able to present that, and it's just, you know, scratch the surface in the July meeting.
And that's also in line item 9 for the agenda too, right? Are we coming back to that? Or is that
Yes,
separate?
more or less, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really sort of like the big picture plan, more than just the capital plan or it's really the whole caboodle.
Well, it's a facility, you know, that's the facilities plan. Of course, we've also got the utilities planning work that's ongoing, and also almost done. We had a video call with those guys the other day, and again, I expect to have that probably a week after the facilities plan. So we will be discussing that or presenting that in the July meeting as well. And the facilities plan will have the facility condition assessment with the cost estimates. It'll have that space planning work. It'll have kind of a narrative on next steps in facility planning. And then it'll have these financial or capital financing options for us to consider, and then it'll have the historic director report.
It's a lot of material.
It will be a lot of the document, yeah. But we've seen most of it already, so.
Cool.
Sorry
Thank
about the chop. I know there were a couple chops.
Dangling participle.
Dangling participants.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions regarding the departmental reports? And let's go to item 6, approval of the special town council meeting and April staff and finance reports.
I make a motion that we approve the May 14th, 2025 special town council meeting minutes and the April staff and finance reports.
Okay, further discussion? Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, I was prematurely voting yes.
All right. In that case, hearing no further discussion, call the question. All in favor?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And that takes us to the mayor's report.
Everything else will be roll call from here on out.
All right, remind me. Okay, a mayor's report for June 18th. Canyon Cleanup Day on June 10th, and it was a great turnout as usual, and we served breakfast at OLS because It was inside because in the past it's been cold, but this time it was warm, so it worked out. And lots of trash was picked up. And I thought the highlight of the whole day was this great looking t-shirt, which was designed by our Brooke.
Aw.
That is a really good design. That's a really good design. I wasn't here, shit.
In fact, one commenter said, this is a shirt I would actually pay for.
Yes. It's a good shirt.
Charges.
A really good shirt.
So you set the bar pretty high. I attended the UTA board meeting on June 11th, where there was a report on a seasonal ski service. They count actually to the single rider, all the number of people who got on the buses, there are 122,000 on the line that comes from historic Sandy, which is line 994, which is down 15%. But they introduced this year these two lines from the north, which they call CS2 and CS1, which had 43,000 more riders. So I encouraged increased service, Alta Express buses, and to measure unmet demand. I mean, my thesis, my conjecture is that there are people who would ride the bus if there were one. And that's hard to measure, but and I also encourage bus service to Snowbird during Oktoberfest to get cars off the road and people down the hill. Dave Fields is working on that too. I think our discussions and progress on the purchase of OS are proceeding well. The instruction report came back with an alarming result. The radon level inside the building is about 15 times higher than that judged safe by the World Health Organization. And tests are easy to do. You take a little block of stuff that's about the size of a phone. You close off a room, expose it for a few days, send it in, and you get a report back. So how'd that radon get there? It came from the ground through the floor. We all know here that we live in a glacier carved canyon made from granite. And granite is an igneous rock composed of a few minerals, but it also contains a small amount of uranium, which spontaneously changes through radioactive decay. One of the daughter products of the decay is radon. It's a chemically inert, colorless gas, which is radioactive and easily breathed in. Has a half-life of 3.8 days. So in 38 days, it's down by a factor of 1,000 in terms of emission, but it continues to be replenished from below. It's not good for you. Carolyn could speak to that better than I. But radioactive decay is not also causes heat, which is why the Earth's rotating core is molten. And because it's molten and a lot of iron in it, that rotating core creates a magnetic field, which creates the magnetosphere, which deflects high energy particles from the sun. And if we're exposed to those, life could not be sustained on the surface, and we'd be in much bigger trouble. You knew I'd get some astronomy in there.
No doubt.
Okay, Mike Vaughn's spoken to the dust suppression. And we are in the very this summer, I don't know if this was mentioned, that the Forest Service is going to provide a local ranger, and that's aided by contributions from Alpha Ski Lifts, Friends of Alpha, and ourselves. There are many ACE and Alpha Environmental Center events coming up, some of which have been spoken to here. Pretty active summer, and for a place that's best known for skiing. Most significant event of this summer is this. The town manager and the deputy town manager are getting married this week, but not to each other. So let's wish them well.
And they're getting married one day
Yeah.
In,
Love each other.
in, 2 days for one and 3 days for the other.
All right, so next meeting will be Wednesday, July 9th. We'll be on. And with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is
Business.
new business. No, is it? Wait,
Yeah,
new
just a little
business.
earlier.
Right. Any new business from any of our members? Okay, in that case, we'll go to discussion of possible action to approve resolution 2025. No, number 9. Discussion of upcoming strategic planning needs.
Yes,
And here's on the screen.
it's barely rises to the level of seeing what. Oh. For my posture.
For the big day.
For the big day.
Do you want this, guys?
Sure, stand up. Yeah, I might as well. So. Right, one of our hot topics these days is funding. Capital projects, and then how to fund them. And as we discussed, I think we're anticipating some final reports from some folks who are working on recommendations for. Projects to maintain and improve our buildings, and projects to maintain and improve our water and sewer systems. And I think we've all acknowledged the need to dedicate some, I think, fairly significant time to figuring out which projects to do, how to sequence them, and how to fund them. I don't think we would be in this position if it were not for these town sort of half or 3/4 day town council retreat style meetings that we've had each of the last 2 years. So thanks again for your time investment in those. Those have really provided the wind in our sails to make this kind of progress. And I don't think we would be here if we hadn't taken those half days to build a consensus. So in 2024, we kind of came up with it, with what is more or less our strategic plan, or our strategic priorities to sustain the Marshal's department, sustain the Marshal's office. Get better about capital planning, think about governance of the town, and start to do some true long-range planning. I think the capital planning is more of a medium-term thing. Whereas we know that, we've got kind of a 10-year outlook on water and sewer facilities, and we need to take a longer-term approach to everything else. This year, we were more focused, on that topic of long-term budget financial planning, and we also took the first bite at the apple of trying to establish a town of Alta mission statement and series of values. Craig always reminds me to give the staff credit or take credit for the progress we've made. I wouldn't ever do so without thanking the council for its support for us to be doing all this work. But I think this is a pretty good summary of highlights. We're doing well on sustaining the Marshal's office. We've been using compensation benchmarking across the organization to try to ensure we're paying in market. Have joined the URS Public Safety Retirement System for our sworn employees, and we do have job notices out there, job postings for a full-time deputy marshal and a part-time officer. We're gonna get that on capital planning. We're gonna get the water and sewer facilities plans here in the next 2 weeks, I hope, and then we'll be able to start digging into them in July. Long-term financial planning. We discussed some options in the January retreat. I think we're gonna get a lot more input on that, and some pretty qualified input in both the water and sewer and the facilities plans. Something that I'm gonna have to figure out is they both refer to similar funding mechanisms, but they do so in different ways, and it's causing me some sort of crosswires in my head. But so anyways, we're gonna be in a really good position to start thinking about how to fund those projects, those documents. And once again, we spent some time on mission and values in January at the retreat. So going forward, I know we've all addressed, I think it's the council generally agrees that these retreats are worthwhile, they're kind of essential. You know, these meetings are generally rapid fire. We do sometimes have work sessions, you know, but an hour just doesn't really get us enough time to get all the way through more complex topics. So again, I'm gonna credit for some of this. We think we have enough to talk about so that we need to schedule a few meetings. And of course, we also have, we have an election coming up. We've got you know, 2 council seats and the mayor's seat are subject to change. And so, and the likelihood that we're going to make all of these decisions before January is relatively low. And the likelihood that we would do so in full public view, I mean, of course, we'll do it in public view, but we want the community and the stakeholders, residents and taxpayers to be engaged as we start to weigh these choices about how to raise revenue to fund these projects. Because I think it's gonna be, it will most likely be sobering for most of us, what that's gonna take. So here's a concept. One meeting to talk about facilities that we would do in the late summer, early fall. Another meeting to talk about water and sewer planning and you know, whatever other long range topics we want to start to get our hands around, especially you know, growth and payroll and what our staff needs going to be, because those are really our costs, as we all know. We would do that you know, at the beginning of ski season or something like that. And then once we once the election takes place and then new council is sworn in, and you know, snowbirds or you know, seasonal folks are in town for the ski season, we would get folks together for another meeting to kind of review what was discussed in the first 2, and see if we can put ourselves in a position to you know, make decisions perhaps in the FY27 budget process, which of course we would be doing next you know, winter and spring. So really the purpose of this meeting today is to just talk about you know, your schedules. I guess take your temperature on this much time commitment to you know, have special council meetings. And then maybe start to talk about scheduling. So one other thing I'll mention, you know, we had, I think, a really worthwhile discussion in that January retreat. It was after lunch, so you know, folks were maybe a little bit groggy. It is kind of how we signed off on the day. But we have these, I guess I'll call them, they're really first draft mission and values materials. I think and I guess I'll read them for everyone's benefit. The proposal we made, having workshopped it on staff for the mission statement of the town of Altus, provide municipal services that promote safety and quality of life for the community, protect the alpine environment and Altus' unique heritage, is maybe how it's written, carefully manage growth and development and support the local economy. And then value statements that we workshopped and proposed were accessibility, transparency, accountability, equity. I think the reaction, I think you'll agree that the reaction with the mission statement is pretty good. And that the values were a little bland. And so I think what we left the retreat resolve to do is essentially get back together with a tuned up mission statement and a couple of additional potential value statements. So I would propose we assume that we find time in a council meeting or perhaps in a pre-meeting work session to see how far we can get towards agreeing on kind of a next draft mission and value statements. And I think we have really good records from that from the retreat discussion that I think you guys will still resonate, and maybe we can schedule a work session in perhaps July or August to make some progress on it. And that actually is the last slide. So
what were you thinking for the meeting one and meeting two, the facilities and utilities, are you thinking like half day meeting?
I think, half day sounds long, but what about 3 hours?
3 hours, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, if we're not, it's gonna be longer.
I mean, that is
We need more than that.
yeah, by some definitions, that's half day, but maybe 9 to noon, maybe
Put them on in less than 4.
That sounds good, reasonable.
And I think we can drill into it because it's, I think it's a concentrated topic. We're not covering a lot of spectrum.
Yeah,
Well, that covers a lot of spectrum all on its own, but I think we could make some real progress because I think we have a really cohesive team at the moment. And to make some of that forward movement, especially based on some of the opportunities that are now available to us because of change of facilities. We have a community center. for instance.
right, yes.
I'm all about this.
You know, my observation is how much further we've come in the last few years in this kind of process. I mean, there wasn't anything like that.
We should keep improving it and keep doing that more.
Yeah.
John's gonna.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I agree. We've made a lot of progress in this area. The one area that we sort of the 800-pound gorilla that we've been slow to tackle is the funding side. You know, most of it I would describe so far as sort of let's map out our wish list and start there of the things we want. And there hasn't been a really concentrated effort to get those numbers down. It's more like let's try to think through all the things that we think we might need and put them on the list. We're steering towards getting numbers as to how much they're going to cost. We've had almost no discussion as to how much we're going to pay for them. And so to try to get a little more of the how do you pay for it side in that September meeting or first meeting would make sense because it would be an election issue. And I think it would be appropriate for us to start that discussion among ourselves. And it's probably the most important issue we're facing is how are we going to pay for these lists of projects that we've come up with. And then the November one would be after the election. So that also kind of makes sense because, you know, we'd have reorganized the team if at all. There's actually not going to be a ton of change here. And then we could move forward with the future from there. So I think it's important that we start to look at how do we pay for it a little more directly and in a little more focused way because you may be getting some ideas from these municipal people, but I think this is where the rubber's really going to meet the road with our constituents. When you talk about, you know, significant assessments, general obligation bonds, they're going to be, you know, and that includes our businesses too, right? Because businesses do pay property tax. We sometimes overlook that because the commercial property tax rates are so low relative to residential property rates, but they do pay. I don't know, Jen, the last time I think we talked about this, didn't we think that the businesses pay like 40% of the property tax and the residents pay like 60% of the property tax? Some
I
number
don't
like
remember
that.
if that's the exact number. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like 30-40% business and the rest residents. So it's not like the businesses aren't going to matter. And our experience with raising taxes on the businesses has been, you know, fraught with adversity. You know, they're very sensitive to even very small increases in the tax rates, probably more sensitive than even Carolyn and I, you know, who are pretty sensitive about it. So I think that would be a good thing to focus on in this early meeting. At least get some of that on the table.
What if we did like a 2-hour session in August to start with funding? And then in September, we did like a 3-hour session on the facilities.
A whole separate session on.
I'm just thinking that we could combine them. I'm just trying to think 4 hours talking about funding and facility in the same meeting might be a lot.
But I agree, I agree with John. I think part of this, in order to do this effectively, and we are poised to do it, is how we paying for it. But I agree, I'll commit to the time.
Yeah.
If we think we can make progress, and I think we divide them out, what John just brought up in conjunction with what we're doing here, how to pay and what it's paying for.
Well, if we find our funding mechanisms or what we wanna go for, we take a couple weeks to think about it. Then we go into our facilities meeting. It's almost like we have a little bit of time to kind of think about it, each of us, or however we wanna, it just gives us time, we're not trying to cram it into one meeting together. Just an idea.
There was some logic behind, the intent was to do the funding review in that, December meeting. And here was the logic behind it. Feel free to modify it and change the order. In order to get the funding passed, I think it's very important that we get town support. In order to get town support, they need to know what it is that they're gonna buy. And the reason that we started with the building is because it's the most concrete. And it's somewhat topical because of the change in situation vis-a-vis the Our Lady of the Snows. So I thought it might be best to start with, I agree, John, the funding is going to be critical. I think we can start with sort of an overview of some of the stuff that we did, at the last session of the different sources. But not try to make any decisions until after we'd actually scope the building to the level that we wanted. Now, I think there's
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think there's gonna be so much pressure on the funding. And I think this town council is acutely aware of it, that what they'll do is scope a building that is practical and pragmatic, that's at least my hope. Instead of some of the pie in the sky stuff that we've had earlier. Cause I think we've gotta go in looking, for me, the water and the sewer replacement stuff was much larger than I anticipated. And so we've got to look at that totality of the expense base. And again, starting with the building, I thought, because it's the most tangible to most of the town members.
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying there, except that, so far the funding has sort of been an afterthought, and we say, oh yeah, we got to worry about the funding, and the meeting ends and we move on. We've had very little really specific discussion of what the alternatives are going to be, what those funding costs are going to look like, and who's going to pay them. And so I think we at least need something early in the process, as Elise was saying, where we start to get that on the table. I don't think you may have a roadmap in your mind as to what you think that's going to look like. I don't think the rest of us really do. We hear bond financing or GEOs or whatever, but we really haven't thought about the burden that's going to put on the community. And I think that would be an ideal thing to get on the table before the election. Because we're going to want to listen to our constituents. We're going to want to take their feedback and start to mold that into the process. I don't think we should do this, sort of from on high and dictate how this is happening. And gee, everybody's taxes are tripling and we've got it all worked out. I think there needs to be more of a discussion, a community-wide discussion. And I think there's a great time to do that is before the election, because we tend to get people's attention with the election.
But I think we can do that.
2 hours isn't going to be enough to get it all on the table. 2 hours is going to be just enough to get us, introduced to the various options ourselves. And I like the idea of having some time to think about that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We just kind of take what we did in our retreat, which is what Craig kind of gave us a really broad summary. But we spend a couple hours actually drilling down to what each of them means, what impact it's gonna have. Yeah. And then it's we could go into a facilities discussion kind of with that in our heads, but okay, if we're gonna design this building and it needs to be a $9 million building, what are these routes that we all have and their impacts? It's just an idea.
I think we have the pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, some really cool rate projection tools that John helped us put together for the water and sewer funds. Like I said, we are gonna have some high level projections for what we could generate from a property tax bond. I mean, sales, revenue bonds on sales tax. It's not complicated math, so I think we can start to get a sense of. It'll be easy to get a sense of what the sort of most likely or most common mechanisms for funding these kinds of projects will do for us, then maybe we can work backwards into what it is we're actually gonna pay for. I will say the notion of not getting to, Craig mentioned that the reality of really funding infrastructure replacement in the water and sewer systems more jarring to me than some of the projections for the facilities improvements. There's big numbers on some pretty low scale funds. And so, yeah, I guess now I'm wondering how we can start that conversation prior to the election, because I just think it's important to talk about how much our water and sewer rates are gonna have to go up if we're gonna implement all those projects that are just to have systems that do what they're required to do present day, and then, how to steward the systems out of generation or two is an even bigger question. So anyways, maybe what we ought to do is just
Can I just add one little thing to that? Adding this notion that we're going to add some kind of sinking fund reserve to replace the pipe in both of those systems. None of that is in the existing rate structure, and those are going to be big numbers. That's going to be some big decision making. And then also, I think that there's going to be more interplay between, what we really need to understand is what's our aggregate borrowing capacity, because they may say, well, if you want to just fund the water and sewer with a GO bond, great, this would be your capacity. But if you're doing that and funding a building and funding other projects, they're going to start to interplay with each other, and we're going to run out of aggregate credit.
Yes, how is our credit rating affected when we've got debt issued against all of we've got debt issued against all of our funding streams, right?
Exactly. Right now, we're in a great position. We have essentially no debt. And so we're in a good starting place. But I think we could run into that problem pretty quickly, where our credit rating goes from being pretty attractive to the market to less than the attractive, because we're putting all these different things through the same, we become a one-trick pony, and we try to finance everything in the same way. So it's complex.
I would offer, in the spirit of the central issues here, which is facilities and funding, that I think everyone would agree that the two meetings, both before the election, is a good idea. Not that we can't have follow on how we fund, but I think we do what you're talking about, Elise. I think we do a facilities, and I think we do a funding half day, 3 hour, whatever it is. And I think we do them both in August and September. That's what I'm pitching to the group.
Yeah.
And we keep them separate. One's about funding and how, because there's some other things I think that I would like to introduce to that, but I don't want to bog down here, which is some partnership stuff, potentially with UDOT. So there's some things that we need to really put on the table, back to what John.
One is going to take 3 hours, and I hopeful that the facilities is that or shorter. And my sense is the facility is going to be a little shorter than I thought before.
Anyway, can we circulate some of those dates and see what you get out of all of us? Okay.
It's clear we need to get the ball rolling, and so I'm all for having a meeting, whether it's a longer, 6 hours, or whether it's 2 2-hour meetings, whatever Chris and Jen think is fine with me.
Great. Cool.
Okay, any further discussion?
That was good discussion.
Yeah.
I like those discussions.
So that was really, that was all discussion about the upcoming strategic plan meetings. That wasn't the budget.
Now we're in the tick list.
Yes.
There's 9 more items to go.
Okay, item 10,
All right.
discussion possible action to approve resolution 2025-R-11 adopting a final FY25 budget. And this is essentially acknowledging what we've spent. Right? I mean, that's what are we gonna do?
I move that we approve resolution 2025-R-11 adopting the final fiscal year. Oh, no, we haven't, wait, hold on, can I make the motion and then make with the adjustment that you had?
Yeah. You know what it is, or you want me?
I don't know the exact details.
I'll help you, I'll fill it in.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2025 R-11, adopting the final fiscal year 2025 budgets with a.
We're gonna edit the capital projects fund on the expense side of things. For the vehicle purchase, the 45,54,742. I just didn't do the math right in my head and I shorted us a little bit, so the purchase of the Alta Marshals 5th officer vehicle, that needs to actually increase to 60,000. And then we have a corresponding reduction in the amount that we're contributing to our funder balance. That will change to 176,631. The bottom line net stays the same.
Second as moved and stated.
Okay, any discussion? All right, this is a roll call.
Correct, everything else besides the
All right, go
motion
for
or
it.
the adjournment will be roll call. Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
This is the most exciting part of our meeting. Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next is discussion possible action to approve resolution 2025-R12. Adopting a proposed FY 2026 budget for the capital projects, water and sewer funds. Open for discussion.
We've covered this a lot.
We have the couple things that I was thinking we could go over if you wanted to. In the budget presentation would be the property tax numbers that we've just received. And then just to go over the water and sewer rates since those slightly changed. I did outline them in the staff report a little bit, but do you want me to go through that stuff really quick? We're not doing anything again with the general fund budget for 26. We have a tentative budget that we approved last month. And so we're gonna go through truth and taxation. And so you'll be reviewing that budget in August. And we will be, in the meantime, producing some reports and some more justification and stuff like that, that we will give out to the community and whatnot.
I don't have any questions.
If you wanna just,
Carolyn or John?
I think we could, I think we've been, I think the capital plan is in relatively good shape, as are the water and sewer plan, and we could approve them now, and if we need to amend them down the road, we will.
I move that we approve resolution 2025-R-13, adopting the Alta Special Service District budget and certified tax rate.
the one before.
Son of a gun. I move that we approve resolution 2025-R-12. But I will move that, that other one in a minute, adopting the proposed FY 2026 budgets for the capital projects, water and sewer funds.
I can second.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes,
Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
very excited about line item 12.
And Celtic's very important to pass.
All right, now, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2025-R-13, adopting the Alta Special Service District budget and certified tax rate.
And as we said previously, it's all zeros, but we're keeping it on the books for
Yes, all right,
actual in the future.
okay.
You go.
I would like to move, I would feel very strongly about moving that we approve resolution 2025-R-13, adopting the Alta Special Service District budget and certified tax rate.
Second.
Councilmember Ansel. Oh, go ahead, John.
I would just make one comment about this. I mean, as we start to look at these funding side issues, it's possible that there'll be something, there'll be things that we actually want to put in this in order to achieve the overall funding package. Some things that would be best handled by this special tax rate and service districts. So I think it's wise that we keep this open.
Great.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
And Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and now Item 13, discussion of possible action to adopt ordinance 2025-0-2, setting the compensation of elected and statutory officers. Can I ask, what statutory officers are there other than electives?
They are, you mean like, what's the definition?
No, who are they?
They're on the
Right.
resolution.
Mayor, council members, town manager, assistant town manager, town marshal, town clerk, town treasurer,
Got it.
planning commission members,
Got it.
and.
There's-
They're kind of I consider them appointed positions in addition to elected.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they were statutory, yeah. All right, let's open this for discussion. Or do I have to make a motion to adopt it first? Let's discuss. I'd like to say something about it. And this ordinance, includes raises for the town council. And, I don't think that any of us are going to be disappointed if we don't get that raise. And, while those raises for the town council, the raise will only constitute less than 0.1% of the total budget. I feel that it's poor policy to raise elected officials' budget at the same time they're raising taxes. So I would recommend that we delete the raises for the elected officials, keep the raises for the staff, the what do they call it? Statutory, and modify it that way.
What about planning commission members?
They're statutory, right?
They're not elected.
They're not elected, but my sense is that the planning commission members and the town council members are not in here for the money. And it won't make any difference to them if they don't get a raise. And that it will not demoralize them in any way, so I would say let's save the money and spend it on things that are more urgent.
I think it's a good thing to communicate to the public as processed and shared by you.
Okay.
And I like the idea. Sorry,
Go
John.
ahead, Cameron. No,
No, go ahead,
please.
sir. I like the idea of the planning commission not having a raise as well. I think you astutely pointed out, I mean, it's a privilege to serve the town of Alta. And so I think that's how it should be looked at. It's not like being on a board, you know?
And it's at least a symbolic effort on our part to save money somewhere.
Yeah.
So
agree.
I think that's good optics on that. I'd rather have a new sweatshirt than a raise.
It was my idea, I think, give you guys a raise, so.
Okay, let me see if I
Well, so-
can try to take a stab at the motion here.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-0-2, setting the compensation of statutory officers. Removing the planning commission.
Well, they're all,
Oh, that's right.
statutory just means that your duties are defined by
Hold on, let me
statute.
try it.
You're all statutory, it's just that you five are elected.
I'm gonna make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-0-2, setting the compensation of elected and statutory officers with an edit to remove the elected town council, the mayor, and the planning commission from the ordinance.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna edit the mayor to be 12,000 on the resolution, that's $1,000 a month, that's what it currently is.
Yep.
Council members will be 1,200, which is $100 a month. And the planning commission goes back to $75 from 125 down to $75 per meeting that they have.
Correct.
Second, as moved and stated by the town clerk.
Okay.
And at some point in the future, we'll make a tiny budget adjustment on the 26 budget.
Yeah, that'll get rolled into what gets presented for August, so these, yeah. Okay, Councilmember Ansel.
Yes, and do we have time, can I ask a question about how much other town council and mayors get paid? And planning commission members get paid. I don't
I
know.
don't know that we're gonna know those numbers off the top of our heads, but I mean, if you're asking for some research, we
Yeah.
need time to do that.
I mean,
It varies.
I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, like John's optic comment was kind of a good one. You know, we've in like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter at all.
I think it's from whatever it, for a council member, the $100 a month, we'll call it, has been that way since I have been on the council. It's not changed. I'm pretty sure if you were to compare us to other councils in the valley, we are quite a bit lower.
Well, we
But it
don't,
does vary depending on the size of the town.
There's no rhyme or reason. I mean,
No.
the mayor of South Jordan, who is I believe, a full-time mayor, works for free. For instance, but I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. I think this is just a product of the organic discussions that each legislative body has, but it's always a hot topic.
But I think the numbers we have served this community well for a host of reasons for these elected officials, and that's why I so positively seconded the motion.
And we don't get bogged down in seeking reimbursement either. I mean, none of us are getting reimbursed for our internet or transportation or any of that stuff. So, I mean, if you know, we're absorbing some bona fide costs as we serve. So,
Yeah, skiing over here is a bit of a labor.
okay, are we ready to?
If you are.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
And Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. And if you've noticed, or motion passes,
Yes.
I'm just doing everybody in the same order for all these today.
Yeah, good. Okay,
But
next item.
thanks for thinking of that, Chris. I think it was a great thing for you to do but I think that the elected officials have voted to not do that, but it was kind of.
We tried.
Yes, you tried. Very well.
I mean, like I said, it hasn't changed in a long time, so it's good for
Yeah.
Chris to put it in there, but.
Yeah.
Discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-14 pertaining to water rates. Discussion.
Thank you. You've essentially kind of already approved this in an earlier resolution, but this is kind of, we have to formalize it in other places too, so.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-14 pertaining to water rates.
Any discussion? Well, let's see, second,
Second.
any discussion? Let's call for the question.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-15 pertaining to sewer rates. It's kind of in the same condition as the water rates. Discussion has been had, mostly. Okay. I want to move to adopt this.
I would like to do that.
All right,
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-15 pertaining to sewer rates.
Second.
all right, discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Mayor Burke.
Yes,
Motion passes.
it's taking 1 minute per motion per item there. Discussion of possible action to approve resolution 2025-R-16 adopting the capital projects plan.
This is the other one where the edit for the truck also needs to happen, just as a heads up.
Say that again?
The edit has to be.
The edit for the truck, because FY
Oh, yeah, the
25 is in
truck,
this year, we
the truck.
wanna,
Got
I'm
it.
hoping that,
Yes. The truck cost 60K instead of 52.
exactly.
Yes.
My interpretation of that is that in effect, there's only one council member competent enough to move that and it's ease.
All right, I'll do that. I make a motion to adopt resolution 2025 R-15 pertaining to sewer rates with the following edits.
Nope,
No,
next resolution.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
Resolution 2025 R-16 adopting the capital projects plan with the following edits.
So close. We're gonna change the AMO truck purchase in FY 25 to $60,000.
Okay,
Second, as moved and stated.
further discussion? Okay,
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes,
and Mayor Burke.
yes.
even though I retract
Motion
my
passes.
confidence
Yeah, I
Uh,
will.
assessment.
Okay. Discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2025 R 17 repealing and replacing the fee schedule.
And this is just, it's basically for the water and sewer rates to put them in the fee schedule and making that just.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025 R 17 repealing and thus replacing the fee schedule.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Call for the question.
Councilmember Ansel, sorry.
Yes.
Well done. Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
And Mayor Burke.
Yes,
Motion passes.
very good. Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda, except for a motion to adjourn. I should note that we're about 20 minutes early. Well, actually, yeah, actually, we're.
Resolutions in the past.
That's the shortest June meeting
Yeah.
ever, by a margin.
It's because of
But I've
your
never participated.
it's because of your well-presented staff packet.
That's right.
I think it's because
Questions.
because we're going through truth and taxation. So maybe we just punt the hard part till
Yeah,
August.
we've had a lot of meetings lately.
We've had a lot of meetings.
We have a lot of
Fair.
Dave and I have sat through many truth and taxation hearings that were silent. Like we did earlier.
Yeah, fair enough. And the June meetings were probably long in those years as well, so.
Okay, I want to thank all for their active participation and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the town council meeting of June 18th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Well done, well done.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Woo.
For my anniversary, that's really cool.
Wow.
Celebrations.
The truth of the taxation hearing, it was always. Aaron Travis.
Yes.
Yeah, he's our main commenter.
Right.
So she
Jane.
had.
Jane?
Like a week ago. So much of this.
I haven't seen her in so long, maybe my rental house is right.
I know. Well, so I run.
Chris, you can